Hi everyone, my name is Matthew Griffin, better known as the Fanatical Futurist. I'm the CEO and founder of the 311 Institute, the World Futures Forum, and Exponential University. And it's my honor and privilege to be joining you all at the upcoming Go Beyond Aviva event being held in Orlando, when I can finally swap this virtual stage for the real stage in front of you all. Now, as a futurist, I look up to 50 years out. I look at over 450 exponential technologies, I cover hundreds of megatrends, I cross every sector and every geography. And while during my actual keynote I'm going to be having conversations with you about much more than this, what I want to do is I want to just give you a little bit of a teaser as to what you can expect when you're there. So, with no further ado, when we have a look at the infrastructure industry, there's a lot happening. So this won't be a surprise to you, smart cities. Now, when we have a look at smart cities, inevitably we're creating systems of systems, where we're creating smart city operating systems. We are embedding the Internet of Things, the Internet of Smart Things into everything and pretty much everyone, it has to be said, with wearables. So increasingly, we have a way to create smart cities that know you almost better than you know yourself. That's a conversation for later. Now, smart cities are highly adaptable, they are predictive, and you can simulate them. Now, when we talk about being able to simulate a smart city, there's a couple of ways that we can do this. We can do this with digital twins, but again, system of systems digital twins. But we can also increasingly do it in another way, which I'll come to in a moment. Now, these smart cities are getting smarter. Sounds a little bit like an anachronism, but they are. Now, increasingly, they're being controlled by artificial intelligence, optimized by artificial intelligence. And if you have a look at the $500 billion mega city that's being built in Saudi Arabia, NEOM, then increasingly they want to use artificial intelligence to personalize the experience for each individual within that city. So whether it's actually getting rid of things like ID cards, you just walk into a building because you have facial recognition, it understands you, and the city operating system lets you in. There's lots of things that we can talk about there. And then, of course, basically, I've talked about digital twins. However, we are now also seeing the rise of what we call metaverse cities. Now, South Korea have already started investing in turning Seoul into the world's first metaverse city. And if you're wondering what one of those is, I might as well tell you now. It's where you can go and access a variety of different public facilities as well as public services in the metaverse, irrespective of where you are. Now, when we have a look at cities like Miami, they increasingly need to be climate resilient. Now, you might not know this, but 300 miles away from you, Miami appointed the world's first chief heat officer, because increasingly we are seeing cities turning into hot death traps. And you certainly don't want that, basically, if you're a citizen living there. So we can have conversations about that trend in Orlando. Now, this is where, on the one hand, we have cities that are turning into deadly heat sinks. We also have to think about disaster preparedness in new ways. So, for example, in Tokyo, they are now trying to create a new Category 6 for the hurricane scale. So they're changing their building regulations accordingly and everything else. And I'm currently working with the US government on a variety of future transportation initiatives. And oddly enough, when we talk about the future of transportation and what that looks like basically within the continental United States, one of the biggest concerns that we have is, if we look at Florida, for example, how do you plan for a time where half the state is underwater? You know, you've spent all this money when we talk about the future of mobility on autonomous vehicles and everything else and nice highways and all that kind of stuff, but fundamentally they're underwater. How does that work? Now, you might also be tempted by this other Miami trend. So we now have apps and we have smart infrastructure within smart cities like Miami that are letting the residents mine crypto coins. So in Miami, this is called Miami Coin. It's based on the Citicoin stack. Now, in this particular case, the citizens earn 70% of the rewards. The city earns 30% of the rewards. In Miami's case, that's worth $80 million a year. Now, at the moment, they want to try to scale this project up to, so it's $400 million per year. And why $400 million, you might ask? Because it lets the mayor of Miami do this. He lets the city It gives the city the opportunity to fund all of the infrastructure projects that it needs to fund and wants to fund. But the mayor, when he wants to be re-elected, can abolish all taxes on Miami's citizens. And I can just see you all filling in your E1, E2 visas now. That's it. Get off there. You got to focus on the event. Come on. Now, I did mention the future of mobility. Now, when we talk about the future of mobility, frankly, there's a lot of nut stuff coming through. So firstly, we have the death of the car, because if you take the pedals, the dashboard, as well as the steering wheel out of a car, you have a space. You have a space that drives itself. So what happens when you have fully autonomous shops that turn up at your door? What happens when you have fully autonomous hotel rooms, gyms, and saunas that can just park up in the local car park garage and let you use them? That's a weird use case, but actually some of those are already here. Now, we have crypto mining cars, basically with Daymak, where the car mines cryptocurrency as it drives around and as it's parked, and then it gives you the reward. Is that a free car? Technically. Now, we also have an energy transition. We're moving from internal combustion engines to battery electric vehicles, fuel cell electric vehicles, and we're also starting to have a look at wirelessly charged vehicles and roads, particularly within Michigan and so on and so forth. We have modular vehicles. We have urban air mobility, especially again in Florida. That's it. Florida loves its bit of innovation. And then we have unimodal transportation. What happens when I don't have to switch between different modes of transportation? What happens when I can just get into one type of autonomous pod outside my door and it takes me to my final destination, even if that means loading me onto a Hyperloop train or whatever it happens to be? That's it. A to Z in one mode of transportation. And then, as for this, as the slide says, this isn't the end. You'll see me in a couple of weeks' time. If you have any questions, do hold your hands up, shout at me, but shout at me in a good way. That's it, and appropriately. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you all there. Take care. Goodbye.